greet President Michael D. Higgins later in the afternoon. Our remaining sessions are in breakout format and will take place this morning in the same 3 rooms as Monday. So we're Marina 2, Marina 3, and here in the Northgate Suite. We have a change in title to 2 of the sessions. Session 3, Track 2, should read Managing Change, and Session 5, Track 1, should read Water Management. After Session 5, Marina 2, which is across the lobby there, are being rearranged for the closing plenary session, we'll take a short break to enable this to happen in roughly 30 minutes. It's an ideal opportunity if you haven't already seen the Waterways Ireland Kyllino workboat, which is just here at the front of the hotel, or in the Artist Studios across the street, the Waterways Ireland Archive exhibition. We'll also have some examples of local craft taking place in the pre-conference area, so if you have a chance in that time to have a look. The concluding session will begin as soon as we can after that, definitely before 3:30 p.m. Our concluding running order includes a closing address by President of Ireland Michael D. Higgins, accompanied by his wife Sabine. We're pleased asking everybody to ensure that you're in the room before they arrive at 4:40 p.m. As they arrive, you'll be asked to be upstanding on their arrival and on their departure, and we would be grateful if you could give us all a hand and give them a wonderful World Canals Conference welcome. The President has been a long supporter of waterways, waterway culture and heritage, and we're looking forward to his address very much. The President will then participate in a formal photography after his address, and we're asking everybody no selfies, please. Please note also next year's hosts, Yangzhou and Wuxi, have opened a competition on their stand over at the exhibition area. And they have 7 prizes, one of which is a special prize of a return flight to Yangzhou from your city for the World Canals Conference 2019. To enter the competition, you just have to place your business card in the bowl on their table before 3 p.m. today, and the winner will be pulled before 4:30. The closing dinner then this evening takes place in the Sheraton Hotel, which is a short walk on foot, approximately 10 minutes. We'll be leaving the Radisson here in groups from about 7:15 p.m. So any delegate that's not staying in the Radisson should meet us all at the Sheraton Hotel in the ballroom on the first floor for a reception at 7:30 p.m. The post-conference tours in the morning will be departing at 9 a.m. So we are asking everybody that's attending the post-conference tours to meet us in the lobby at 8:45 a.m. And all that's left to say is enjoy your day, everybody. Thank you. I'll hand you over to Paddy Harkin now, who is the chair for the first morning sessions.
Morning, everyone. So a little bit of housekeeping. Can we just make sure your phones are on silent? And we'll now start with this morning's breakout is about engaging the audience. So we have 4 very interesting speakers. The first speaker will be John Robinson, who will be talking about reimaginability, cycling for success along the Canal. Then we have Andrew Grieve with how Greenways can deliver government objectives. We then have Donall with the Royal Canal reimagined Greenway for the 21st century. And then we have Rebecca Farrell and Markus Muller with Rejuvenating Angling Tourism, a collaborative approach. So first of all, we'll start with John Robinson. So John was named as one of the 10 White House champions for change in the area of disability employment and honoured with the Excelsior College President's Award for Advocacy in 2010. Since 2011, he served as the managing partner, CEO and founder of Our Ability, which provides inclusive workforce and employment consulting, mentoring and workshops for people with disabilities. John additionally has founded Our Ability Connect, which is an online platform for employers who can connect directly with qualified people with disabilities. As Executive Director of the New York Business Leadership Network, he builds coalitions with New York State businesses interested in hiring and building supplier diversity for businesses owned by individuals with disabilities. So we're looking very forward to your talk, John. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Paddy, very much. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's good to be here. There's nothing worse than having your bio read, so I would rather introduce myself to you than anything else. It's nice to see a lot of you. I saw a lot of you at Sean's last night too, so I'm a little tired this morning. good to be here. I want to talk a little bit, just a very little bit, about what we do with Our Ability, but I'm more excited about what we've done with our hand cycle trip across New York State and even beyond since then. It's really sort of changed our lives, and it's nice to share that with people. But before I do that, I own an organization called Our Ability, and I started it about 10 years ago. And I started Our Ability as a way to help myself a generation later, which is I had a very hard time finding full employment after I graduated university. And so finally had a good career in media at television stations in the United States, but never forgot the 4.5 years of unemployment that I had after I graduated university and before I started my television career. That 4.5 years really changed my life, my way of thinking, and what I wanted to do a generation later, which is start an organization that mentors, connects, and inspires people with disabilities towards employment. So what do we do specifically? We end up acting as a bridge between companies in the United States and individuals and disability service providers. So disability service providers who help people with disabilities find employment, and companies that are looking for good quality existing employees. So that's the bridge that we do, and we're proud of the work that we do 50 weeks a year. It's what we do every day, and we need to do it. The reason we do it is because in New York State specifically, there are 1.1 million New Yorkers with disability. New York only is a state of 17 million people, and the reported number of people with disabilities is 1.1 million. That's probably low. The truth of the matter is there are more that just don't self-disclose. So we have a number of individuals with disabilities that we try to help find employment. The unemployment rate for people with disabilities, though, is nearly 70%. So there's a need for us to do what we do on a daily basis. The amazing thing is there's an economic impact if we help people with disabilities find employment. And that is that the buying power of individuals with disabilities and their families in the United States, even with 70% unemployment, is nearly $1 trillion. So imagine if we could lower that unemployment rate to 60, 50, 40% for people with disabilities. That buying power goes up from $1 trillion. That's economic impact to our communities, to our businesses, and that if you're a business owner, that is an opportunity to grow. So it's what we do on a daily basis, and we're excited to do it, and it's what I think about. It's what keeps me up at night, and it's the need that we're here on this planet. But then there's 2 weeks a year that we do something different, and this is what makes me smile. And it's part of a challenge that my wife, Andrea, who's sitting here, asked me some 5 or 6 years ago. Wouldn't it be great if we got on a hand cycle? Now, mind you, I really had never hand cycled very much, but got on a hand cycle and crossed New York State to talk about ability. And I was a young person growing up in New Hampshire, in New England, loved sports, really wish I could have skated, played hockey, could have played football, baseball, whatever. I didn't get a chance to do anything physical like that. But as an adult, I had the opportunity to be donated a hand cycle. And so I would ride that around our neighborhood, but pretty quickly that became a little bit more than that. And Andrea challenged me, wouldn't it be great if we crossed New York State? And I stupidly said, no, that wouldn't be a good idea. How far could that be? And she said, oh, don't worry, it's not that far. And I said, what do you mean? And she says, it's 350 miles along the Erie Canal bike path. I had certainly heard about Cycle the Erie and some of the projects along the Erie Canal, but I was a novice about canals, a novice about disability tourism, a novice about all of the things that we end up talking about now. I said there was no way I was going to do this, and she said, don't worry, it's all downhill. Well, that's not true. It's only downhill where it's not uphill. And so that we learned really quickly. But in 2013, we mapped out a route that we'd cross New York State in 17 days. We trained, we built up our muscles, we knew what we didn't know, and we decided to start out. And it was an amazing, amazing experience. But I will tell you that it was also an educational experience. So this is 2013, it's June 23rd. here we are ready to go, leaving Tonawanda, New York. And that's me on the left, obviously, Andrea over my shoulder. But on the right is Doug Hamlin. Doug Hamlin is a business partner of mine with Our Ability. He's not a financial business partner, he's more of a mentor to me. Doug turned to me somewhere in 2013 when we started to talk about cycling across New York State, and he said he had a hand cycle too, and he would really like to join for a couple of miles a day. And so that really excited me. There's the first person that we inspired to do something else in their life as we cross New York State. But here we are, June 23rd, fresh as daisies, ready to go. Didn't know what we didn't know. And I'll tell you, we found out really quickly, because at the end of day one, 22 miles, tired, cranky, and we realized we had 16 more days to go. And day two, 95 degrees, 27 miles, I'm ready to give up. I don't want to go any farther. And we get to a small town in the middle of New York State, and there are a couple of hundred people with developmental disabilities cheering us on. And then you realize why you're doing what you're doing. And a movement started. We got further down the road into Rochester, New York, and we were invited to an organization that was celebrating a Paralympian from London, and his name is Ryan Chalmers. He won a gold medal in 2012, the year before, for racing his wheelchair. And we were excited to go meet Ryan because I'd met him in London at the Paralympics. But pretty quickly you realize why you're doing what you're doing. And it's why you do what you do with Our Ability, an organization helping people find employment. And then you realize why you're cycling across New York State, because there are people that are watching you. And I'll get into this later, but there are people watching you everywhere. And pretty quickly we realized that why we do what we do isn't about Doug and John or Andrea and Pam. It's about who you meet along the way. And these two little boys were there at this event 4 days down the path the first year, and they said, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Hamlin, we want to grow up and we want to cycle across New York State. We want to ride our hand cycles. And then you realize you're not going to stop. And we didn't stop. We made it to Albany at the end of 17 days, and I thought I was done. I thought I would never do it again. And I was ready to be off the bike, and I'm going to keep going with other things in my life. And this young boy in our community came up to me, and his name is Luke. And Luke has cerebral palsy. And at the time, Luke was 17 years old, and he was very meek and mild. And he said, Mr. Robinson, can I talk to you for a second? And he really sort of dragged me away from everybody else. And I said, sure, Luke. And he goes, Mr. Robinson, when you and Mr. Hamlin do this next year, can I join you for a day or two? And I said, absolutely not, Luke. I am not doing that again. I will never cycle across New York State again. And there we are in 2014, ready to go. What you'll notice here is that we got smarter. So Doug and I bought new machines. We realized we were under-equipped for the first year. Doug, the first year, probably did 60 of the 360 miles. But he was under-equipped. And he said to me somewhere along the way that winter, he goes, John, I got so mad at you that a guy with no arms and no legs would beat me across New York State. And so he went out and bought an $8,000 black hand cycle. Of course, not to be outdone, I went and found an orange hand cycle, and so there we go, we're ready to go. Year two, Doug did 363.4 miles. He did every mile that I biked, he biked. And we learned a lot about each other in year two, and year three, and year four, and year five, and this year. And what we've learned about ourselves, and maybe more about New York State, is there is so much out there. But what the best impact is, it's not the people that you see in these photos here, although they're like family to me, and they are family to me, I guess, at the same time. You learn about the other people that see you along the way. And we've had people for the past 6 years along the Erie Canal come out, cheer us on, but they're making the connection. They know why we're there for Ability. They know why we're there to make an impact on our communities. And they're getting that message. They're getting it through the media. They're getting it through social media. They're getting it through word of mouth, and it's a wonderful thing. We couldn't do it without Andrea and Pam, and so Doug and I both show this picture of Andrea and Pam, and what's great is they met each other the first day of the first trip in 2013, and that was the first time they met. And the truth of the matter is they became really fast friends when we now that we've cycled the past 6 years. They're very like-minded. They're caregivers. They're wonderful people. And so it was great to share this experience with them and see it through their eyes of seeing disability in a new way. But the connection between disability and cycling along the canal path is that there are obstacles everywhere that you go. There's an obstacle when I try to open the door. There's an obstacle when I try to get my breakfast this morning. There's an obstacle wherever I go as a person with a disability in an able-bodied world. The truth of the matter is there's obstacles even in this situation. You know, when your bike is 1.5 inches off the ground and the grass hasn't been mowed and it's 5 inches tall. That's like life for me. There are obstacles everywhere that we go. And sometimes those obstacles seem insurmountable. And for me, I've got to climb off the bike and jump over the tree. And for Doug, he's got to backpedal and go to the nearest road and catch up with me. And sometimes in life it rains. And sometimes in life, as people with disabilities, there is not a physical solution, right? We have to realize that we do have limitations. And there are rainy days in life. And that's what we've learned along our cycle journey, that there are rainy days in this. Now, this picture to me not only brings memories of being wet, this picture gives me a taste in my mouth. And that is that, you know, when you're riding along and your front tire is 1.5 inches from your face, you're used to getting sand and dust in your mouth, but you're also used to getting other things in your mouth. The #1 population on the Erie Canal, anybody want to guess what it is? Geese. Yeah, not mosquitoes, it's geese. So I know what this tastes like, because it's not mud that I'm thinking about, it's the stuff that's in the mud. Nobody in their right mind should know what goose poop tastes like. Nobody should. But you also learn in life that there are people that help you get through the challenges in life, and they become fast friends. And that's who you want to work with these challenges on in your life. And it's one thing about a hand cycle trip, but it's another thing about the work that we do each and every day. That it's the friends in business, friends at home, friends at play that get you through. And that's what we want to do with our ability. See, when we are helping an individual find a job, if you think about your own careers, your own work life, your own work experience, when you introduce yourself and you say, "My name is John Robinson," usually the second thing out of your mouth is where you work, and the third thing out of your mouth is the relationships you have in your life. But people with disabilities, we're missing some of those circles. So you say your name, but maybe you don't have a job, so you're not able to say where you work, and maybe you don't have the relationships or the friendships or the marriages in your life, and so you don't say that. But that's what we're trying to do with our ability, is by building up the employment, we can help build up the individual. And that's everything that we stand for. And specifically, when we're out here on this trip, we see the faces of the people that we've impacted for the past 6 years, people that we've come to know, that need inspiration, that want to come out and cheer us on. And it's not about us, it's about them. It's about the people that want to share their experiences and what they want to do in their life and where they're going forward. This time last year, I got the opportunity to speak in Syracuse, and it was a wonderful opportunity to speak to everybody. And I said a lot of what I just said, and then Ross Martin stood up from Scotland and invited us this past year to cycle something new. And I said, "Ross, I'm all in if I could wear a kilt." So unfortunately, Ross really thought I was serious about that part of it. No, I wasn't going to wear a kilt when I cycled. But yes, we did ship our bikes. Yes, we did fly over to Scotland. And I was interested certainly in the challenge of it all, but I was interested in to see differences from what we have in New York State. I was interested, I know a lot about the UK disability community, so I wanted to see face-to-face the people in the UK that we've worked with, but then get personal with them and find out how we can help. But I also was curious about how does the community interact in Scotland different from New York. And so we were very excited to fly to Scotland. We started out by doing some tourism, and so there we go. We're at Loch Ness. And yes, Nessie exists. I can assure you that's her. There she is. That is not an image of any kind that's been doctored, I promise. We get to Scotland, and we're invited to be assisted by an organization called Recyclebike. And I can't tell you the power and the impact that Recyclebike has had on me just in the past 3 months. Recyclebike offered to follow us along and go with us, but they also wanted to experience the journey themselves. And they were going to follow up with a van, and they're going to change our flat tires, and they're going to sag the bikes, and wonderful organization. But we toured Recyclebike first. Recyclebike is an organization that refurbishes recycled bikes, rebuilds them, and sells them. A lot of the labor is done by people with disabilities. And it gave us an idea of what we could do when we go home to New York. But they're using people with disabilities to rebuild the bikes. They're selling the bikes. They have a coffee shop in Stirling in Scotland. And wow, it was an epiphany. Here is the organization that we can connect, what we do with our cycle trip and employment with people with disabilities, and there it is. So we were in debt to Recyclebike. We also did meet Disability Equity Scotland, so we got to meet some people in Scotland that deal with people with disabilities as we do, and that was wonderful to be able to meet with them when we were on our 99-mile trip from the west coast to the east coast in Scotland. And we saw an awful lot. And we're used to cycling the Erie Canal, but we got to see some things that you wouldn't normally see, like Highland Coos right along the cycle path, which is pretty cool. We got to see the famous sites. And there's no picture that can give these two things justice. The Kelpies are amazing when you're cycling underneath them. And you look up, and they couldn't possibly seem bigger than they are. They're huge. And it's an amazing thing. And it's right along the cycle path. And the Falkirk wheel is an amazing feat of engineering, which you all probably know better than I do. But we had the opportunity to ride in it. And what a great experience that was. It was something very unique and very touching to us that we had a chance to take our little band of thieves across the ocean to see what's going on in Scotland. We got to also experience some things that were new to us and some things that were old to us. Certainly we know canals, we know locks, we know about sticking things in water. This is an interesting image. There was somebody there with a big magnet digging things out of the water, which was great. Come to find out, Ross sent me an article this week that there was a bomb there. So thankfully we didn't hit the right piece of metal that day, because it could have been different. But we did learn so much. And as I'm closing, what we learned is that people across this world do want to help one another, and that people across this world do have an ability to work together. The canals are an amazing connective piece to your local community, your greater community, your national community, that I don't think any of us realize what it could be, how much better it could be. But today, we've seen firsthand, and you wouldn't think people with disabilities are connected to your canal, but they are. They're the fabric of your community. They're the most forgotten in your community, and yet they're there. And we've seen it firsthand. And when I think about what we learned traveling to Scotland to cycle along the Scottish Canal, is how wonderful we are all around our canals and the people that we have that connect to them. And we've met thousands of people along the way that want the inspiration, that want to come out and say hello, that want a job, that want to show us their trail of hope that they built, that just want to come and say hello and follow us along. It's no different than if it's in Scotland, I'm sure here in Ireland, and certainly in New York State. And what we learn the most is that we have a wonderful community in our own community along the Erie Canal. What I was left with is how warm, welcoming, and loving the Scottish people were to us, and I can't thank them enough. I also realized how great we have it in New York State. And then I realized it's similar everywhere. Just yesterday on that tour, you realize there are wonderful people along the way. We didn't see people with disabilities, but I didn't expect to. But I know that if we were to cycle through, we would. So I would urge all of you to think about how your communities touch people that you might not otherwise realize are there in your community, what impact you can have. The best thing that I heard is that Scotland is going to keep going with this cycle trip moving forward without us. And that's wonderful to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John, for that very informative presentation. In keeping with the whole theme of greenways and getting people out along our waterways, our next speaker will be Andrew Grieve, who will give a presentation on how greenways can deliver government objectives. So Andrew's bio reads is that he is the head of the DFI Walking and Cycling Unit since November 2013. He lives in Belfast and is a regular commuter and everyday cyclist, clocking up over 2,000 miles per year around the city. His background is in the area of mechanical engineering, and following a period working in industry and 4 years as an academic research with Queen's University Belfast, he joined the Northern Ireland Civil Service in 1989. So over the last 25 years, he's had a variety of posts in the public services. He currently is in the Walking and Cycling Unit, which presents challenges in making real differences to people's lives, including health and well-being and more active lifestyles. And is also looking at reducing the reliance on motorised transport and bringing economic and social benefits to people-centred places. So, Andrew, the floor is yours.
Well, good morning to everyone. After listening to John, I feel a wee bit as if this is going to be a bit flat. That was quite inspirational. Although this conference is about canals, and we've already heard the word blueways too, so I want to talk about something a little bit different, although blueways and greenways really are cousins. There's a great similarity between them. So without any more ado, I'm going to get right into my presentation. And whenever I'm talking about cycling, and I can see it in John as well, I can get quite animated. What do I say? What am I doing here that's wrong? Oh, good idea. Excellent, okay. Now, just ask a question. Is this a familiar sight to you? Is this part of your daily experience? Not sitting in traffic, but just being traffic. And this is just really an illustration of one of the many problems that really face modern society nowadays. And I suppose it's a result of progress, it's a result of us becoming more healthy, a result of us living longer, a result of us becoming more wealthy. But there is a sense in which our health and our wealth is actually starting to kill us, particularly if you live in a city. And although this is actually taken on a day in Belfast when the bus lanes were suspended, so the traffic was actually worse, which of course does tell you just how important walking, cycling and public transport is. So it's not just that we in our own experience encounter problems, but if you just take a quick survey of what the newspapers are saying, and here you'll see a certain theme going right through news reports. A problem with obesity. I was intrigued to discover that even in Thailand, among the monks, the Buddhist monks, they're having a problem with obesity as well. I would never have believed that. Air pollution is another theme. Illegal levels of air pollution are set to continue. The cost to society of motoring. Now notice I didn't say the cost of society to me and to you. We always complain about the cost of fuel, but there is actually a real cost of motoring to society whenever you think of the problems that it causes, and even ill health in older people. That's another problem. People might live longer, but are they living healthy lives into old age? That's another great issue. So that's the sort of thing that you read in your newspaper day and daily. So not only do we feel it, not only are the newspapers saying it, but nowadays governments are beginning to recognize that there are real challenges real challenges for everyday life. Well, at least to say that they recognise it. If you just read down there, you'll see a word or a couple of words that are repeated time and time again, and it is this whole idea of physical activity. The need to increase physical activity across the population, including those that have disabilities, but us all, is a theme that governments talk about time and time again. And any kind of physical activity is good. But the thing about walking and cycling is you can actually incorporate it into your daily routine. But how do we actually go about doing this? So like a lot of other countries in the West, the Northern Ireland government, although at the minute we don't have a government, but if we had a government, whenever we did have a government, this is what they said. That was not a political point in case there's anyone with sensitivities here. We have moved to this outcome-based way of assessing what we do. And this is really what our draft programme for government is about. Now, I just want to highlight three particular issues in this, one of which is highlighted. The programme for government outcomes, it's all about the big issues. What are the big issues for society? So just keep that wee thought in your mind. And then the last line here talks about making a difference to people. And of course, the important thing to remember is that what really makes a difference to people is not huge, big projects, but very often it's quite small projects. That's what can really make a difference to a lot of people, and yet it doesn't get reported in the news. And then this third thing in the very first line, save the good wine until now. This third thing is generational in nature. So the big problems that we have, the big issues that we have in society have taken generations to develop. The changes that we need to actually reverse the trends are actually generational as well. And that can be very hard whenever your local elected representatives want to get elected next year. And that can be a bit of a problem. So what does this really mean, this outcomes-based thing? Well, here's five of our, this is not all of them, but this is just five of them which I think are relevant to what I want to talk about. And what it really is about, I want you to notice a couple of words here. There's outcomes for the environment, number one. Outcomes for health, number two. Outcomes for children, the best start in life. Economic and social benefits, a place where people want to live, work, etc. And then infrastructure, and what maybe we're talking about here is the fact that people nowadays travel a lot, travel infrastructure, and that of course does not mean more roads necessarily, or I would say at all. So the question then is, those outcomes that we want to deliver, are Greenways the silver bullet? Or Blueways, are they the silver bullet? Oh, look at this. Health, check. Economic, check. Environmental, check. Social, check. Travel, check. Those are all things that Greenways can actually deliver, which are the outcomes that government wants. And do bear in mind the title of the talk, How Greenways Can Deliver on Government Objectives. Now, is this just all pie in the sky, good intentions? Well, just take a little look at this. Where there have been greenways, trails or whatever have been put in place, and many of them are along canals, the Erie Canal, for example. Many of them, that's where they're located. So what has happened on the Waterford Greenway? And I know I'm not in that part of the country. 30 jobs have been created in a rural community. This next one, which may be a little bit sensitive, is here's a comment of someone who uses the Great Western Greenway, which I cycled yesterday there and back. I thought I had achieved something until John told me about the Erie Canal. I only did 56 minutes yesterday. So my wife lost 2.5 stone, health benefits. And then you can go down through, this is an interesting one at the very end. Properties along the trail have taken off. Property prices have actually enhanced as well. And so you can quote more and more of these particular incidents. They just reinforce the point that Greenways have actually benefits for society. So all what I've talked about is behind what we've been trying to do in Northern Ireland over the past 5 years or so since the walking and cycling unit was established. One of the first things that we did was we published a bicycle strategy in August 2015. And although that strategy focuses on cycling, getting on the bike, it actually applies equally to walking too. And whenever we come to talk about Greenways, that's about walking and cycling. And in most of the Greenways that we have, it's 50-50 between walking and cycling. And underneath this bicycle strategy, there are 3 pillars. They're called build, support, promote. What build is about is ensuring that in Northern Ireland, we have a comprehensive network that people can get out and use and walk and cycle. What is the biggest issue that people have about walking and cycling in everyday life? It is safety and its problems with traffic. Greenways and Canal paths are ideal for getting people the safety that they really want. So support then is about training for people that want to learn how to bike. Promote is about dealing with or producing positive messages to tell people it's not actually as bad as you think. Over the past couple of years, we in Northern Ireland have carried out what's called a bike life survey for Belfast. And there's 2 particular messages that have come out of this which I think are very, very important. And the first of these traffic lights, horizontal traffic lights, what's this all about? Well, if you look at the green end of the bar, that is the percentage of the population that are already cycling, 10%. If you look at the red end of the bar, that is about 1/3 of the population who have no intention in any circumstances ever over my dead body of getting on a bike. But if you look at the middle section, which is the largest cohort of the population, those are the maybes. Those are the people who are interested in cycling, but they're concerned about cycling. And it's equally true about walking. Those are the people who are willing, but they're worried about what we do. So, enter stage left, a comprehensive network to give them the freedom and confidence. The second thing, and that comes out of the second point at the bottom, we surveyed and asked people, what is it would actually make you get out and do more cycling, to get out and undertake more physical activity? And what they told us was this: separated infrastructure, segregated from traffic, or traffic-free provision. So it's not just us sort of saying, sitting in our ivory tower in the government saying, I think we need to have more greenways, more paths. But people are saying, if you give us this kind of infrastructure, then you can actually get us out doing physical activity, which is the outcome that we want. So, we in government, civil servants, the population, and even politicos, the political commitment is there. In one of our recent elections, all the parties in Northern Ireland, the main parties in Northern Ireland, all said, we need greenways, we'll do more greenways, etc., etc. Now, the question is, they're supportive. The question yet is, are they really going to be serious and deliver that? So let's just remind ourselves, I hope that's not telling me to stop, is it? No? Oh, no. So just let's get back into our minds again what a greenway really is. And again, the overlap with blueways is very, very large. So a greenway is about providing people with that free environment, that safe environment to walk and cycle. But it is, of course, much more than that. It's an opportunity for people to travel. It's an opportunity for people to take exercise. It's an opportunity for people to engage in recreation, and therefore tourism, and therefore benefits to the economy. And so the final bullet really, in a sense, sums up what this is about: the connecting of communities for different kind of journeys, and of course giving a benefit to the economy. It's really getting communities out and about on a daily and on an everyday basis. So here are some of the greenways that we have. I always have to give you a few photographs of what it's about. And there's a thing that these are some of the greenways that we have at the minute. The Cumber Greenway, the Lagan Riverside Path, the Lagan Tow Path, North Foreshore, Consort Community Greenway. And a little thing that, if you're quick, you'll notice about almost all of these places, with one exception, is this, that they're all beside water. They're all beside rivers, they're all beside canals, or they're all beside the coastline. And again, that just illustrates that what a greenway is can be what a blueway is, and the two can work very much together. So how do we take all this forward? Well, what we have done, November 2016, is we produced a strategic plan for greenways. In Northern Ireland, there were 26 councils, there are now just 11. And what we found was that they were doing little paths here and there, but it was discontinuous, it was in isolated areas, and really, whenever you have a fragmented, quote-unquote, network, it's not a network, you don't maximize the benefits. So the whole idea in putting this together was to develop a regional framework for greenways, for the development of greenways. A regional framework that councils could then work towards, and they could do their projects to fit in to the overall network. It was giving them a framework within which they could actually do their projects, and that would build up over a period of time to enhance the tourism offering, the economic benefits, the health benefits on a major scale. So, how do you actually put together a greenway network? So this is one of the things I just wanted to touch on. How do you actually go about that? Well, this map really shows, in a sense, the challenge that we face. Because you start off, of course, with the existing greenways. And you might strain to actually, where are these? Oh yes, I see a few green lines there. There really isn't a lot of greenway network in Northern Ireland. And whenever you look at it, you'll find that the most of it is in the southeast, with a little bit in the northwest. Outside of those areas, there really isn't a greenway network at all. So that's the first thing that we identified. The second thing we did was we got in touch with the councils and we asked them, what sort of plans have you got for greenways? What are the things that you would like to do? What are the projects that you'd like to develop? And they came up with a number of ideas. But again, you'll see that they're mainly to the south with a little bit to the east, to the northeast. So that doesn't really give us a regional network. So the third part of the jigsaw was that we looked at where there were dismantled railway routes. And this is where we begin to connect together the region. The other thing about this, of course, is that it actually connects the Eurovelo 1 route, or it gives us a better Eurovelo 1 route. Now, this is not to say, of course, that all these routes are available. People tend to build houses on old railways, and they tend to let their cows and their cattle and their sheep onto them, and then even worse, sometimes to fill them in, etc. But whenever you look at them, these are the routes that are currently there that we can identify. You notice still to the northeast and along the north, there is a lack. Well, the problem is there that they haven't dismantled the railway. Unfortunately, it's still there, so we can't actually use that. Not that I wouldn't be against doing that. The fourth bit, final part of the jigsaw is we look for anywhere else where there is infrastructure that could potentially be used. And that's where we bring in old canals. Now, the problem in Northern Ireland is a lot of these canals have not only been abandoned, but they've actually been filled in. The Ulster Canal in the bottom there is one. The path up alongside the lower Bann navigation is another. We've also included flood embankments to the northeast. And you can see that has put together a network of potential routes for greenways in Northern Ireland. And what you find is, in the strategic plan, the network that we've come up with looks a bit like this. And it's made up of a primary network and a secondary network, about 400 kilometres of primary network and about 600 kilometres of secondary network. Another thing you'll notice about this map is, if you look to the left and to the bottom, you'll see there's a number of yellow routes. They are cross-border routes, because what we've tried to do is we've tried to develop this in an all-island context. That's where you maximise the benefits. So, bearing in mind that at the very start of developing this network, we found out there were very few greenways existing. What we then came up with was a scheme to try to encourage councils to develop plans, and we called it the Small Grants Scheme, Small Grants for Greenways. And what we really wanted councils to do was to think about projects that they hadn't maybe been thinking about, that they could take forward, and to provide them with money to develop feasibility studies, and then to do detailed design. And we're going through this process at the minute of developing up to 11 detailed designs, and we're in the position now where we would hope to launch a capital grant scheme where council can actually get money to begin to build these greenways. Now, that does depend on getting a government back. We're in the position in Northern Ireland we can't really decide to do anything substantial without, at the current time, without a government in place. So it's moving forward. John again talked about obstacles. This is one of the obstacles that we have. We don't have a government, so we can't actually announce the capital grant scheme, but the hope is that that will be announced in the very near future. These are some of our targets and some of our future plans, not only the comprehensive network, but a third level of community paths to link people into the Greenway network. And that's really me finished. Only to make the point, sure, everyone would want one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew, for that very informative talk on Northern Ireland's plans for greenways. And in keeping with the whole theme of greenways, we've had John, we've now had Andrew. So we're now looking at Donall AnBheatha, who's going to look at an Irish context and the Royal Canal reimagined Greenway for the 21st century. Donall is a senior planner with Longford County Council for the last 20 years. He has over 38 years' experience across both Ireland and the UK in a variety of roles. And at the moment, he is responsible for the development of the Royal Canal Greenway cycle path in County Longford with associated amenity parks and walks. Donall.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thanks for coming to hear what we have to say. I was very lucky with John and Andrew that they've set me up nicely. They talk follows. This is just a brief video we prepared for our Royal Canal Greenway.
The Royal Canal Greenway. Your adventure, your way.
So, as you were told, Donall AnBheatha is my name. I'm the Senior Planner with Longford County Council, and I'm also a member of the Royal Canal Amenity Group. And we've also worked very, very closely with Waterways Ireland in developing the Longford section of the Royal Canal Greenway. So I'll just grab my little machine here. So I'm going to talk about the Royal Canal Greenway and how we're trying to develop it into what I would really call a smart canal, and that's using modern technology to promote and encourage users of it for all the reasons that Andrew set out beforehand and for the same reasons that John set out. Community activity on the canal. So this is the waterway system in Ireland. Most of you are probably familiar with it. The Royal Canal running from Dublin down to Longford, the Grand Canal from Dublin to the Shannon, and then the Shannon itself, the Bann and the Barrow. So they're a wonderful waterways network we have in this country. And now we're trying to develop it and use it not just for waterway purposes, but for walking and cycling purposes as well. So the Royal Canal, as it exists in Longford, so it runs from Dublin down to Mullingar. And so from Mullingar, it continues through to Ballymahan, up to Longford town, and on up to the Shannon at Clondra. You're here in Athlone today on the Shannon and Lough Ree system. So this is the section I'm particularly talking about. So far, working very closely with Waterways Ireland, and Michael Bain is here in the room. We've completed it from roughly Kinnegad on the Westmeath border, on the eastern side, right through to the Shannon at Clondra and Longford. And Michael and Waterways Ireland are now working to complete it from the Westmeath border through into Maynooth on the edge of Dublin. So by this time, by summer of next year, it should primarily be completed, and we expect a substantial amount of walking and cycling traffic to come down it. Also in Longford, we've connected it with the Corley Trackway Centre. I'll give you a bit more on that in a minute. And our goal is to complete it through to Dublin, to get national route designation on it, and to link to the Great Western Greenway through Roscommon to County Mayo. So this is how it developed. This section up here was done around 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. And that whole stretch now is complete as a fully fledged Greenway. Just bringing it more into the Longford context. So the lovely village of Abbeyshrew, Ballymahan, Keena and Corley Centre here in the centre, Longford Town and Clondra. And I'll come back to it in a minute, but the new Centre Parks tourism facility here in Newcastle Wood. So this is what it used to look like. I grew up beside the Royal Canal in Dublin, and this is my memory of what the Royal Canal used to be like up until about the 1970s. And very interestingly, our family and doctor in Dublin was Dr. Delaney, and I see that there's actually an exhibition here by his sister-in-law, Ruth Delaney. So there are connections all over relating to the Royal Canal. So anyway, this is what the Royal Canal used to look like. It was similar in Longford, and the Royal Canal Amenity Group got going and basically started cleaning it up and campaigning for its refurbishment. And eventually that led to the formation of Waterways Ireland and the completion of the canal. So this is what we have today and how lucky we are. And now that's moved on to this. These are Notre Dame students from the United States enjoying the canal in Abbeyshrew in Longford, to the launch of the Greenway earlier this year. And so what you can see in those set of pictures is an increasing number of people and an increasing number of usage of our Royal Canal and our Royal Canal Greenway. And for those of you who don't know, these are two government ministers who helped fund the project. So that was our launch day. This is what it's about, people getting out, being active, enjoying themselves on it. It's not just about cyclists, it's walkers, babies, enjoying the heritage, the architecture, the amenity of the Royal Canal. It's 200 years old last year. And now to move on to the Smart Canal element of it, our website. So again, working with the Royal Canal Amenity Group, we've produced a website, the Royal Canal Greenway. You've seen the video, there's other videos on it. It has all the usual stuff that you would expect to find on a website: articles, tips, videos, interactive walks, the current status of the progress of the Greenway, and route information. And it's also providing information for visitors to come and discover it and find local businesses that they might need while they're on their travels up and down. We have maps, so basic maps showing you the routes, the distances, and the different places that you'll be able to visit along the way. And then it drills down even more into more detail. There's a Westmeath map. This is the Longford map. So all the stops along the way, the distances between them, the bridges, all the information you need while you're out there walking and cycling. And then it goes into accommodation, food and drink, route information, all of this obviously, because it's on the internet, will be available on your phone. So you get all this help and information on it if you so choose to use it. And if you get lost, hopefully it'll get you back on track again. Where to stay and where to eat and drink. Now, it's a work in progress. It's not complete, but certainly the Longford section of it is complete. And we're hoping to work our way up through the rest of the country. Now, in addition to that, we've put up these QR tags. So when you arrive into a town or a village, you put your little mobile phone up against it if you have the app, and all the information will roll out. There's little Bluetooth boxes. You can see it up there. And that, again, if your phone, Bluetooth on your phone is turned on, again, it'll bring you to the website. It'll give you all the information, tell you where you are, and if you need to get toilet, cup of coffee, or bed for the night, this will roll out the information to you. So all our little towns and villages in Longford have this, and again, we're hoping to roll that out back through to Dublin. I understand Maynooth is done as well. So that's how we're trying to bring our Royal Canal Greenway into the 21st century. These are two lads who are using the facilities. Matthew is here in the room, the Royal Canal Amenity Group. He'll be talking to you later about the restoration of the canal and where we would like to go next. So we'd like to set it up as a social media dashboard, real-time maps, so you can find out where you are and where you need to go. The data trends. So far this year, we've had 15,000 visitors to that website. Kicked off the middle of last year, so to get 15,000 in 1 year without any promotion just shows you how this stuff works. Mainly Ireland, UK, Europe, United States, Canada. So that's the type of interest and traffic you generate by having a good website providing you with good information. Maybe some of our visitors here in the last few days may have found it and looked it up when they were coming. So citizen reporting, we have a blog page, a Facebook page. One article in Facebook last month attracted something like 13,000 visitors to it. So that's, without any real action or real promotion, it's already attracting interest and people coming seeking knowledge. Obviously, we want to manage and plan it into the future, and we'll probably get more into the promotion element of it. So there's a lot of work done on the Greenway just to get it as a good walking, cycling route, and on the internet element of it. But there's a lot more to do in terms of signage and promotion and just general information. Those type of things you expect to find when you come into a town or a village or here. Where am I? What do I find? Where do I go? What's there to do? So that's all building all the time in the background. I have to say, the Royal Canal Amenity Group are a voluntary group. So a lot of this has been done on a shoestring, and a lot of the members who have the skills have been helping to build this website. So it's pretty cool to have achieved that with the type of resources we have. So moving on, next steps. This is Longford. How Longford, so the canal is in blue here, and how we intend to build out of that canal in terms of visitor experience. Longford has the lowest number of visitors in Ireland, 24,000 last year. The next one up is Leitrim with 41,000, so that's how actually low we are in terms of visitor numbers. However, we would expect 100,000, 200,000 visitors to come down this canal in the next few years per annum once it gets up and running. So why would you come to Longford? So we need to make things of interest and other things that you'd like to come and do when you get down there. It's a great county for kayaking. It's one of the best whitewater rivers in Ireland. Boating on the Shannon, bogs, lakes, forests. We have it all, but nobody knows about it. So this is our effort and attempts to broaden it out and promote it. Cycling routes for those who wish to cycle more. There's various loops in the South County, again, all coming off the Royal Canal, and all the information on the contours that you might need. And this is the biggie. By luck, Longford landed Centre Parks, sitting right beside the Royal Canal, sitting in a forest. So it's a 250 million tourism investment in Ireland by a UK company. It's going to open next year, state-of-the-art, 4-star accommodation, big indoor pool and warm area, and then about 100, 150 sporting activities, all to do within Newcastle Wood, sitting right by the canal. So we're connecting into the canal in the hope that people who want to come down to it may not only drive or come by bus or train, but they can actually cycle from east and west and cycle into it and cycle when they're there. Corley Trackway Centre, it's a Stone Age trackway centre that was found in the bog. It's over 2,000 years old. It's housed inside a visitor centre here. Very little visited. So in order to increase the numbers on it, we've connected it into the Royal Canal here, and we've added about a 30-hectare bogland park around it with walks. And we're hoping to add to that with more recreated Stone Age experiences. Nature, obviously, out on the lake and the whole area. It's an old cutaway bog, and it's beginning to renature. So it's all greening up really, really nicely. And again, we intend to add to that over the years to increase the visitor enjoyment and experience of that. And this is the trackway as constructed 2,000 years ago, and it's amazing 2,000 years later we're still doing the same thing. How little things change. Our ancestors built a trackway across the bog, and 2,000 years later we're building greenways across the country, and we're bringing it into the modern age with the internet. So our ambitions, again, Royal Canal Greenway coming down from Dublin to Longford, that hopefully will be completed next year. I know that Offaly are working on now doing the Grand Canal back up to Dublin, and the idea then hopefully between ourselves, Offaly and Westmeath, would be to connect Longford down along the Shannon to the Grand Canal, so you'll have that complete loop as a greenway to do, running through Athlone here. The Eurovelo route is to extend it on to Galway. However, we want to extend it onto Westport, where we have the Westport Greenway, up to Carrick-on-Shannon and Lough Key Forest Park. So there are ambitions. You might say we're over-ambitious, but 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if you had said we would have a greenway along the Royal Canal from Dublin to Longford, you would have laughed. Today, it's a reality. Who's to say in another 5 years, 10 years, that these plans might be reality? This is the wonderful Bordenamona Bridge across the Shannon. This is what we hope to utilise in a few years' time, to utilise the Shannon. It's an amazing bridge. I've been lucky to be out there and walked across it. It's like the bridge over the River Kwai, if any of you are young enough or old enough as I am to remember that picture. It's just an amazing, it's not like going across a normal road bridge. There's a sense of achievement when you get to the other side. It's just amazing. So hopefully that's the way our cyclists will be heading west and east in the future. A lot of the infrastructure is there, as you see. It's only a matter of, I suppose, dreaming it and turning it into reality. This is our Blueways, so again, built around the Royal Canal and working with Waterways Ireland. We already have the River Camlin Blueway. Our ambition would be to extend it on down to Shannon, along Lough Ree, and then back up the River Inny, back into Ballymahan, so that we have this loop again. This is our poor old government ministers being harassed for funding. Minister for OPW, Kevin Boxamoran, and Shane Ross, the Minister for Transport. So you can see how hassled and unhappy they are when they see us coming. However, when we complete the Greenway, who wouldn't be happy? So thanks to them and thanks to the money that they gave us, you know, at the end of the day, if you don't get the money, you can't do anything. And we've been very lucky for the last couple of years. So essentially, isn't this what it's all about? In the words, sorry, the little videos. Sorry, we just go back there a sec. Yeah. The words of William Butler Yeats, the Lake Isle of Innisfree. So isn't this what it's about? Peace, really. And peace comes dropping slow. And then no matter where I am in the big cities, as Andrew pointed earlier on, stuck in traffic, always I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore. That anchors us back into nature, and I suppose essentially it's for me personally, in my health and well-being, and you and everybody else in the communities that John spoke about, trying to get us reconnected back to nature, trying to make us feel good about ourselves, healthy in ourselves, and loving this beautiful world we have. Thank you very much. Just finish off with the last video, yeah?
Thank you, Donald, for that. So we're now moving on towards the fourth of our presentations here today on engaging the audience. And this presentation will be delivered by Rebecca Farrell and Markus Muller, titled Rejuvenating Angling Tourism, a Collaborative Approach. So Rebecca is the project coordinator with the Upper Shannon Erin Future Economy project since October 2017. So she is responsible for the delivery of the project, which aims to promote regional economic development and job creation across a number of sectors, including tourism. Markus comes from Waterways Ireland, where he's had many years' experience in angling and tourism development. So their presentation is going to show us how waterways and tourism can create jobs and economic well-being.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for coming here to hear our presentation. You have two speakers between yourselves and a cup of coffee, so we'll try and do our best to keep to time. The previous speakers have set a good example. So my name is Rebecca Farrell. I'm the project coordinator for the Upper Shannon Erin Future Economy, and Markus Muller is coming from Inland Fisheries Ireland. And we're going to talk to you about a collaborative approach that we're taking to a project on rejuvenating angling tourism. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of the project, our aims and some of the audience, and then Markus is going to, I suppose, talk a little bit more about on the technical side and on the product and what we have to offer in the region that we're speaking about. So my particular role working for this project with a very long title essentially involves economic development and job creation in this particular region that we've got coloured in on the map here. Get my pointer. And it's economic development and job creation across a number of sectors, including tourism. And if you look at where we're talking about, for I suppose our international audience, these four different colours represent four different local authority areas, four different counties, so working with four different local governments. That's not always a natural place for us to be in. There wouldn't be a strong history of county councils working together, but increasingly more and more we are going that way and moving that way. And even just geographically looking at that region, you can see how it makes sense, because a lot of the challenges that would be faced by one county would be met by others. We're an inland region. While we do have the accolade of the smallest coastline on an island with Leitrim there, about 4 kilometres, I think it is, we are essentially inland, so very much relying on our river stretches and lakes when it comes to tourism and rural tourism. And that is, of course, our great opportunity and our great benefit. We're talking of a population of about 210,000, very, very small urban areas, some very, very rural population, about 75% of the population in that region living in rural areas. So rural tourism, incredibly important for economic development and the kind of, I suppose, the growth of the region. So I suppose, how did we get to the point where we were looking at angling tourism and development of that project? Well, in 2016, we, again, taking a collaborative approach across the 4 county councils and working very closely with Waterways Ireland, we were involved in the development of the Blueways. And I'm sure you've heard a lot about the Blueways over the last couple of days. And we would have been heavily involved in the development of the Shannon Blueway and the Shannon Earn Blueway. And sorry, my map isn't great, but this will take you right down from Longford, where Donall was talking about there, all the way up through into Cavan. So we're going through Roscommon, Leitrim, and on up into Cavan. And that idea that Donall was talking about as well, about developing different trails and other tourism products along the way. So it's not just the water-based activities, but we would have been involved in developing food trails, cultural trails, arts heritage, and so on. So I suppose we had great success. This spoke very much to the aims that we were trying to achieve in terms of developing rural tourism. We connected 22 rural towns and villages with the development of this. So we thought, well, that went well, and we all got on. What next? And when I talk about we, I'm literally talking about this absolute plethora of logo soup. I'm not going to go through all of this, but just to give you an idea, when we are talking and taking a collaborative approach, and Andrew would have touched on this as well, you are talking about engaging with a massive amount of stakeholders. So we've got our funders, our county councils, so we've got to bring them on board. We've got our partners who really provide the experience and the expertise, like Inland Fisheries and Waterways Ireland, and of course our new brand for the region, Ireland's Hidden Heartlands, coming from Fáilte Ireland. But our enablers are so important. So these are just a sample of some of the accommodation providers and service providers that we have in the region. So, we can develop a product and we can bring an initiative forward, but without this buy-in and these enablers, really we're not going to go very far. So just to kind of give you a sense, when we talk about engaging our audience, from my perspective, that's who I'm thinking about, and it's those stakeholders and bringing them along. So I suppose after lots of meetings and soul searching, we struck upon the idea of developing and rejuvenating angling tourism in the region. And we set ourselves a pretty ambitious aim to establish the region as a world-class destination for coarse and pike angling. And I suppose just to say at this point, we're kind of working through this at the moment. We're at very early stages, but we're starting to see progress in it. And as I say, this is all part of the process in order of bringing the buy-in and the stakeholders along the way. But how did we land on this? And Markus is going to go into a little bit more about the outstanding resources that we have from a natural perspective, the lakes and the river stretches that we have in the region, and the abundance of them. But it's there to be utilised, and it's what we should be focusing on. We have a world-class product, so it's already there. We just need to start thinking about how we want to market it. And of course, when I'm looking at projects that the 4 counties can work across, projects that just do not care about county boundaries is perfect. And angling tourism really speaks to that. The angling tourist really, even anyone who would have been on the North Tour yesterday, or any of the tours, the amount of counties that you would have passed through, you wouldn't have noticed, nor would you care, nor should you care. But I suppose, so that's why this particular project works really, really well for us from that point of view. Markus is going to go through, I think we're on to, Markus is going to go through some of the facts and figures on angling tourism now.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Markus Muller. I'm with Inland Fisheries Ireland in the business development section. So before I talk a little bit about the various fisheries and the products, a few words on, or a few facts on socioeconomics. So why angling? While angling is pretty niche, so you're talking about 135 international visitors to Ireland, it is quite important to attract tourism to rural areas, because anglers stay longer as the average tourist, and they spend more money as the average tourist. And angling actually creates over 11,000 jobs Ireland-wide and generates, that's an estimate, around 800 million euros per annum to the Irish economy. And just looking at the UK, which is our most important market because of its proximity to Ireland, angling is regarded as the 6th biggest sport in the UK. So just bear that in mind, and that's all the reasons why we actually choose angling for this project. That leads me to another very important initiative, the National Strategy for Angling Development in Ireland. And this government strategy led by Inland Fisheries is a great tool for product providers and for stakeholders to further angling tourism. And there's 3 main topics there. First of all, making angling accessible and attractive again, tourism development, and then last but not least, the recognition of angling as a key leisure activity. So let's talk a bit about the area, the main fisheries. Again, we said without boundaries, but I've just plotted all the 4 counties here. So we're talking about this area here. And when you look at it, already I've superimposed the main water bodies on this. So we are talking about, first and foremost, the River Shannon. Now, a considerable part of the Shannon, that's about 100 kilometers of river from Lough Ellen down to Lough Ree. And then, of course, the 2 big lakes, Lough Ellen up here in the north, Lough Ree, 100 square kilometers of water, 30 square kilometers of water, and then a lot of other smaller lakes like Lough Key here, and then the Lough Outer and the upper Lough Erne system with a myriad of smaller waters, all connected by rivers and canals. The green is basically the canals in the area, and that's the Shannon-Erne waterway, also very important in terms of angling tourism. Now, we have a few other minor fisheries, minor in the context of the product. The main emphasis is here on coarse and pike angling. Before I go any further, just a question in the room there. Are there any anglers amongst us? Can you just say, raise your hands, so all novices, nobody fishes. Nobody has caught a fish? Okay, excellent, because that's important for my next few slides, so thank God I put those in. Anyway, so but back to the fisheries. So there's a lot of smaller waters there, so all in all, the area boasts a huge variety of different water bodies, and that is very important for angling tourism. Now, in terms of what's out there for the angler to catch, that's a pike. How many of you would have known that this is a pike? No. At least there's some understanding of fish there. That's great. So we shouldn't forget that while pike is probably regarded within the Irish angling fraternity as not a major sport fish, it's actually the most sought after sport fish in continental Europe. And we have no closed season in Ireland. That means you can fish all year round for that fish. That is unique. In any other country worldwide, there is a closed season. Also, our fishing is free. So if you want to come to Ireland and want to fish, you just come and you fish. And that's something particularly, I'm from Germany. Now in Germany, everything is regulated. And we're very bureaucratic. And you have to do a training course, you have to do an exam and all these things. And then you have to go and get a permit. Here you just go and you fish. That's for pike and coarse fish. Also, the Irish pike has a great reputation as a very good, strong fighting fish, and that's actually very important to market it. The term coarse fishing, I personally don't like it. Just to explain where it comes about. So the term coarse fishing is opposed to the term game fishing. Game fishing is defined as fishing for salmon, trout, sea trout, salmonid species. All the other species are coarse fish. I don't really like this, like game up here and coarse sounds a bit, but anyway, so you're talking basically about fish from mostly the carp family. And that would be, these are 2 nice bream, caught near Longford, I think on the main river Shannon or Lough Forbes, I think. You're talking about bream, roach, rod, and hybrids. And that's also free fishing. So that's something we have to bear in mind, and that's very attractive for the tourist angler. And coarse fishing is particularly popular in the UK and in the Netherlands. That's another coarse fish. Any ideas? No. It's a tench. Also carp family, tench. Also sought after by coarse anglers. It's a very pretty fish. It's difficult to catch. And here in Ireland, there is tench fisheries where you can get 30, 40 fish a day. And if you talk about this to anglers on the continent, they say, wow, 30, 40 fish. If we get one in a month, they're happy. So great potential. Last but not least, not to forget the cruising. The cruising also a very important activity, particularly on the Shannon, on the canals, the Shannon-Erne waterway. And this is ideal actually to combine a kind of a non-avid type of angling, a more family holiday with fishing. And this is particularly popular with German tourists. I've mentioned game angling. So this would be niche for the area. The focus is on coarse and pike. But we shouldn't forget we have some high-profile game fisheries, mostly in the northwest of the area, Leitrim area, River Bundraus, and the Loch Melvin fishery, and that would be more important for the US market. Talking about markets, I mentioned first and foremost the UK. Proximity to Ireland, a lot of anglers. There is 2.5 million coarse anglers alone in the UK. They're big into competitions, so-called matches. So that's actually a great way to kind of attract more tourist anglers to host such events. Germany, biggest market in mainland Europe, 5 million anglers. And Germans like to travel, like myself. I travel the world for fishing, so Germans like to spend their money traveling. The Netherlands, again, 2 million anglers. Pike and coarse, very important, and they are supposed to be very loyal customers. So once you get them, they stay. Just this morning, I was staying in a fishing lodge here in Longford, and I met a group from Belgium, and I asked them, oh, is this your first time? No, we're coming to the very same spot for the last 10 years, maybe 3-4 times a year. So it shows you once you get them and the product is right, you can keep them. France, of course, second biggest market, non-English speaking market. Pike, very important. Other markets, Eastern Europe, Italy. Competitors. We have to be aware that there's other countries who do well on the angling tourism. And they would be, in terms of the pike, definitely the Scandinavian countries, Sweden, Norway, Denmark to some extent, Finland. And in terms of the course, it would be the UK, France, and Netherlands. So these guys rather stay at home. So if we can make them travel to Ireland, we benefit all. How do we market angling tourism? So there's a different few marketing tools that we can use. It's a combination of all, actually. Overseas trade promotions, very important, basically to fly the Irish flag, say, hey, here we are, Ireland, great country, come here, spend your money, go fishing. But also we have to work with international angling tour operators to do packages. We need to get the attention of the media. We have to host media visits to get magazine pages. But at this day and age, probably social media, online content, blogs, stuff like that is equally as important. But also, at home, I think it's important to run workshops for the trade, to actually train the trade. So what's important? You have to have tailor-made products, one-stop shop, etc., high quality, guiding services. And that leads me over to hand over back to Becky, who will talk a bit more about workshops. And I hope you got a fair idea about the wonderful fish species that we have in this lovely country. Thank you.
Almost there now. Just in terms of our next steps and what Markus was saying about workshops with the trade. So as I said at the outset, obviously one of the most important groups in terms of engagement and buy-in for this project to be a success are our service providers and our trade. So at the very start, we organised a couple of events with them, and we everything from your boat hire, your bait shops, your accommodation providers, and so on. We ran a couple of events with engagement of, I think it was 80 plus that we had at the events. So we were delighted with the turnout, and I suppose it's starting to kick on from there now and to develop different workshops, as Markus has said, just in terms of the training and I suppose highlighting some of the key things, that the competitor isn't John down the road. It's, the international countries like the UK, Scandinavia, Netherlands, as Markus has pointed out. and that the angler tourist will have particular needs. So, you need to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get the breakfast for them because they want to get out early. They need drying rooms and so on. So we're working with that group of 80 that we engaged with at the start of the process to start to kind of develop regional packages. And that's just a colleague of Markus's there who would have been involved in the workshops along with Waterways Ireland as well. So very much taking that collaborative approach to the training and workshops that we're doing for the trade. Just, I suppose, in conclusion, just a little bit of the story so far and maybe some of the challenges that we've found along the way. Certainly when you're taking a collaborative approach to a project like this and you're getting buy-in from 4 county councils and a number of partners, sure, the decision-making can be a little bit slower and it can take a bit longer to get that buy-in from your stakeholders. But certainly I find that the benefits from the collaborative approach, and I think even Markus's slides there just show it. I mean, I can pick up the phone for 10 minutes with Markus and learn so much about the region and what it has to offer. It would take me absolutely hours to do that research. So being able to have that expertise and to engage with organisations like Inland Fisheries and Waterways Ireland is really, so important to what we're trying to achieve. And of course, we have more resources as a result. We can tap into 4 different tourist offices and push out our regional products as a result. And just to finally say, just in terms of visiting, we've got, if you are extending your stay in Ireland or if you're thinking about coming back, please do consider the Upper Shannon region as a destination. I have a standout in the exhibition hall, as do my colleagues in Leitrim and Roscommon, so please do pop along and say hello to us, and we'd be delighted to give you a little bit more information about the region. That's just the website for the project that I'm on. And then this is Inland Fisheries Ireland, so where Markus is coming from. That's their forward-facing website, and will give you an absolute. If you all decide to, no longer be novices and take up angling, that'll give you a massive amount of information for the whole of Ireland. Okay, thanks very much.
So first of all, thank you to the speakers for all keeping on time, and it means that we now have about 10 minutes for questions. So just one piece of admin before we progress with the questions is that there is just a slight change in the programme. So after coffee, Galen Fulford will now speak in Breakout 4 in Marina 3. So Galen was on in the afternoon. He's now on after coffee in Marina 3. Whilst Matt Kennedy, who was speaking after coffee, will now be speaking in the afternoon, and he'll be speaking session 5, track 1 in Marina 2. Or another way of saying that is that Matthew Kennedy and Galen Fulford are swapping places on the programme. So I'm going to now invite questions. Mervyn has a roving mic, so he's down at the back there. So plenty of hard questions now for our speakers, lads. We have 10 minutes to grill them. So, yes, question over here. Mervyn, just beside you there, behind you.
I've just a number of questions for our last speakers, and it's great to see you promoting fishing. You left out fly fishing, and we tend to concentrate on coarse fishing, and particularly the unfortunate large pike, who is under significant threat. And I just wonder what we're doing, if we're going to promote fishing, what are we going to do about preserving what we actually have, which is a fantastic resource. And there's 2 questions really I've got. What are we doing about, I see one of your partners is Bord na Móna, who are chucking in billions of tons of warm water into the Shannon, and which have devastated the coarse fishing in Lanesborough. And what are we doing about monitoring and ensuring that our overseas visitors catch and return and don't pay for their holiday by taking home bootloads of pike?
Okay, thanks for your question. First of all, I actually didn't leave out, or we didn't leave out fly fishing. I mentioned game angling, and that includes fly fishing. So the reason why we are focusing on the coarse and the pike is because the area with the 3 counties has a majority of pike and coarse fisheries. There are some fly fisheries, as I elaborated on, in the northwest, which is the Bundraws, Lochgill, Glencar Lake, a few others. And of course, they are included. So there is kind of a synergy between the different disciplines. Now, in terms of the pike, you're referring to the controversy that's ongoing at the moment between the trout and the pike fraternity in this country and certain management practices. Now, I'm pleased to let you know that we recently have a new piece of research, and we are actually putting that into place, where we actually look at the diet of the pike. So the pike management only takes place in a number of designated wild brown trout fisheries, which are, for example, Loch Corrib, Loch Conn, Loch Cullen, Loch Arrow, the Westland Lakes, Loch Mask, Loch Cara. They are designated trout fisheries. There, at the moment, pike and trout management is in practice. The whole area in the Midlands, there is actually no pike management, so no pike are taken out. And we are on the forefront actually of promoting catch and release, or CPR, catch, photo, release. And that's a way of actually preserving the resource. So anglers that come here to Ireland, they really appreciate the catch and release policy that's in place. Whereas, for example, in countries such as Switzerland or my own home country, Germany, where I'm from, there's a completely different approach to fishing. You just fish for the pan. So basically, when you catch a fish that's in season and that's over a certain size limit, you have to kill it. Because the rationale behind this is, it's cruel to fish just for your own satisfaction or your own kick. So when anglers come here to Ireland, they really appreciate our catch and release policy. In terms of the management of the water resources, basically we have our environmental officers out. We actually do stock assessments, water quality control assessments. We work hand in hand with the EPA, for example. So of course, there's always areas where water quality has declined for various reasons, but overall, Ireland is still perceived as a country with an abundance of coarse fisheries, species in terms of pike, coarse, and sea angling. Thank you. Yeah, well, that's an issue, of course, as I mentioned, but... Sorry? Well, yeah, we are in negotiation with Port Namona on this, but it's never monocausal, there's several issues, and unless you can really prove that there is a single cause for an issue, for a fish kill or for whatever, it's very difficult, that's unfortunately the situation.
For the Greenway and bicycle presentations, my concern or my question is about the surface of the Greenway. What is the optimum surface, or what is the surface that most of you prefer? I noticed a lot of macadam in the pictures, and I'm on canals, which normally is either crushed stone or original dirt that has been beat down.
As far as Northern Ireland is concerned, we are not prescriptive about that, but it really comes down to the volume of use. A lot of those photographs that I showed were in more urban areas, where the tar macadam or bitmac is what we would normally use, is what is used. Once you get out into the rural areas where use is lower, we tend to go for compacted quarry dust, is what we call it. I was on the Royal Canal on Saturday, actually, and there's most of the places it's compacted quarry dust. Well, there's a number of little places where a road traverses, where there is a bit of bitmac is put down. But whatever the usage is, volume of usage mainly is what would determine it, but we wouldn't really be prescriptive about that. What we're actually keener about, actually, is to make sure that it's wide enough. In an urban area, you really need to have at least 4 metre width, which is what we're in the process of going, trying to implement. In more rural areas, 3 metres is probably what you're looking for.
I'll just get John to answer from a cyclist perspective as well.
Certainly, we've seen in the regions that we've cycled there's much more use when it's been paved. So the harder the surface, the more use there is. The softer the surface, the less use there is. You know, from my perspective, on 3 wheels, it's much harder on dirt and mud and grass. So we're happy when it's hard crushed stone, or very happy when it's paved. But we just anecdotally we see much more usage when it's paved. So and the width becomes very important to us as well. So if you're in the process of expanding your greenways and you want usage, the harder the surface, the better the usage. And certainly in this climate, which is similar to upstate New York, it rains a lot. That becomes very soft when it's not as firm. So you pave it, or really packed crushed stone is good.
Thanks, John. Question over here.
2 points. One is maybe a piece of information for Markus. I'm in the Corrib catchment area. It's an offshoot of the Corrib catchment on the west, which would be designated coarse angling. You might have remembered Danny Goldrick, and he's a friend of mine. But I think the pike issue might have been part in the past. Rather than a visitor thing, it was actually the new migrants that caused a lot of the diminishing. This is what is believed anyway in the area. Galway had 10% increase, and the cultural difference was when they went pike fishing, they weren't aware of catch and release or photo or whatever, so they took them home for the pan. As a result, there is no large pike in those small lakes, and a lot of the hotels and B&Bs shut down after it. The second point is just a question for either Longford development of Greenways, Blueways, and North of Ireland. What issues are coming up with regard to land and route access vis-a-vis landowners and farmers' objections, and how are you overcoming them?
From a Longford perspective, obviously the Royal Canal Greenway is on the Royal Canal, which is within Waterways Ireland's area of control, so there hasn't been any land issues with landowners. You're probably referring to the Athlone to Galway Greenway, where there are landowner issues with farmers, and that's understandable. What we tend to do in Longford, though, is we have a few more link-in greenways coming on stream, which is they're passing through private land. We go out and speak to the landowners in advance and agree access. Now, it's easy for a local authority to do that, particularly a small local authority like Longford, because they know who we are and we know who they are, and we're a close community. So generally, we approach the landowners 90% of the time. They give us access. It's what's called permissive access. And then we go in and build the greenway across the land. So that we don't actually take the ownership of them. They just give us agreement to access, and we build it and insure it and protect them and fence it and all that sort of stuff. So certainly in Longford, I haven't come across any land ownership issues, problems.
Well, I am glad to hear that, because land ownership issues is the single biggest problem that you'll have whenever you're developing a greenway. A lot of the dismantled railways have been taken over by farmers through adverse possession. The key lesson that we have learned, this doesn't come from us, but lesson that we have learned from other greenways, is the importance of consultation with landowners from a very early stage. None of these things happen quickly. You've got to identify your landowners. You've got to go and work with them. You've got to work with them on a long period of time. You've got to talk persuasively. And a lesson we learned from Scotland was you have to try and avoid approaching landowners as the government. Inevitably, you'll find someone who, you did something to their great uncle Jim 150 years ago and they've never forgiven you. And the thing is, if you can employ champions locally from the community to help you with that, or bodies such as Sustrans, who are charities, and get them to do a lot of the legwork, consulting with people, etc. That's the important thing. A lot of these things take time, and you've got to put the time into it to get people to agree. People do not want a Greenway done to them. People like it whenever they're consulted and they're part of the Greenway, and the community aspect of the Greenway is a very important part if you're ever going to deliver it. So those are some of the lessons that we have learned. It takes time. You've got to put the time into it.
I had a question for Andrew. Did I understand correctly that the Northern Ireland government has an official program to evaluate how well government is doing its job, specifically in this case to promote the public welfare?
Yeah, the draft program for government, now, we don't have a government, just bear that in mind at the minute. But the whole idea behind this is to set up, they've set up a number of outcomes and various indicators that will show whether they're making progress towards the outcomes over a long period of time. And we all have got these report cards that we have to fill in every half year, every year or so to demonstrate. It's all about ensuring you don't focus on the short term, but you have a better view of the long term, this generational kind of thing. Now, it's wonderful in theory. We've only started to do it. It'll take a generation to see whether it works or not.
And we just have time for one more question, because then we'll take a few photographs, and then we have coffee waiting for us. So you've one question.
Just a quick sort of minor question. It seems sensible this is on the fisheries and the anglers. You mentioned that there was research that they stayed longer and spent more than the average visitor, and also that they're more often repeat visitors. We're trying to make a case and thinking about some of those fishing constituencies in upstate New York, and I wondered whether you actually had done a study or whether this is just common knowledge, if there was something that really looked at that, because people think it's small compared to, more broad-based tourism, but I think there is value there.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. It is small, probably in an overall context. It's only 2% of the overall visitors to Ireland, but in rural areas,
right,
or along the western seaboard, for example, and the periphery, angling tourism can play a major part for the local economy, particularly where other types of tourism aren't developed. Now, there is various socioeconomic studies out there, and I can give you my card, and you can link to those. They're available on our website. We have assessed different markets. We're doing different surveys, and feel free to get in touch with Inland Fisheries on that.
That would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
We've come to the end of this breakout session, so we're going to give each of our speakers a presentation of the World Canals Conference pennant, and then we'll be wrapping up at that stage for tea and coffee. So each of our speakers, if you can come up, we'll get a photograph with you.